Quantum leaders, the arbitrator, consciousness as architect, not bystander. The arbitrator's natural style, structured, principled, and mentally rigorous, leads them to believe that justice is built through logic, policy, and procedural clarity. But through the quantum principle that consciousness is the architect, not the bystander, the arbitrator comes to a deeper realization. Every system they enforce, every standard they uphold, every judgment they deliver is not just a reflection of fairness, it is a projection of their inner architecture. They are not just managing the rules, they are encoding reality through the lens of how they perceive order, truth, and accountability. The system follows not just what they decide, but how they hold the field. With a motivation direction of away from, the arbitrator is vigilant against breakdowns in fairness and integrity. But if their internal state is rigid, anxious, or overcorrective, that posture is embedded in the system, consciously or not. A procedure meant to ensure justice may carry undertones of mistrust. A well-meant decision may subtly penalize rather than uplift. When they operate from calm clarity rather than defensive regulation, the structures they uphold begin to liberate rather than constrain. Their attention focus on self gives them internal consistency. But if they view themselves as the only guardian of truth, they create an architecture of separation. Others sense they are being judged from a distance. When the arbitrator begins to hold themselves as a conscious part of the relational field, their presence shifts. They stop managing fairness from the edge and start inhabiting fairness as an energetic tone. They become a stabilizing current, not just a referee. With an internal frame of reference, they trust their standards. But those standards must evolve. If their internal logic is based on old assumptions about people, punishment, compliance, they embed yesterday's consciousness into today's systems. The arbitrator becomes an advanced system steward when they regularly audit their assumptions. Is this policy still serving? Does this protocol reflect who we are now? They stop defending static truths and start building living fairness. Their procedural operational style expresses as frameworks, guidelines, and safeguards. These are not just functional, they are energetic imprints. A tight structure may instill fear. A loose one may invite disregard. The arbitrator designs at a higher level when they treat every rule as a vessel for meaning. What does this rule teach? What does it invite? Their protocols evolve from constraints to carriers of intelligence and culture. Their specific viewpoint offers detail mastery, but what they see becomes what others feel. If they're constantly pointing to micro errors, people internalize scrutiny. If they hold space for effort, pattern correction, and improvement, people internalize dignity. The arbitrator refines their craft when they recognize that every judgment is an emotional architecture, not just a technical response. With a solo work preference, they shape systems in private, but how they feel while building, frustrated, rushed, calm, resolved, gets transmitted. The state of mind in which a policy is written becomes part of how it is lived. When the arbitrator slows down, breathes, and designs from internal harmony, their systems begin to feel fair even before they are applied. Their emotional engagement is dissociated. They aim for clean objectivity. But even in silence, tone radiates. A judgment delivered without emotional intelligence can feel like erasure. When they design with emotional resonance, not emotional bias, they create systems that carry truth and compassion simultaneously. They become not just accurate, but wise. As matchers, they rely on precedent. But every precedent carries an embedded worldview. If they replicate a rule that was born of fear, hierarchy, or urgency, they repeat its energy. The conscious arbitrator becomes discerning not just about what worked, but what kind of energy it was built in. They begin crafting new rules from stability, inclusion, and regenerative logic. Their through-time orientation allows long-range mapping. But time is also an architecture of consciousness. A drawn-out appeal process may send the message, "You don't matter." A rapid judgment may signal, "We're done listening." When the arbitrator balances urgency with care, precision with pacing, their systems begin to feel fair in tempo, not just content. And with the primary drive of things, they anchor decisions into form. But form isn't neutral. Every policy, contract, or decision is an artifact of thought. When they realize that every output is encoded consciousness, they begin building not just policy, but value systems. Their forms become vehicles for dignity, safety, and justice, not just containers for action. In this frame, the arbitrator becomes more than the one who decides. They become the invisible builder of how fairness feels. Their consciousness shapes not just rulings, but culture. Their energy informs not just systems, but belief. When they lead from coherence, curiosity, and compassion, not just correctness, they no longer enforce order. They architect a deeper field of trust. And in doing so, they become not just a judge of what is right, but a designer of what is possible. Quantum leaders, the arbitrator. Polarity creates the blueprint of experience. The arbitrator's natural style, principled, measured, and integrity-focused, seeks resolution through clarity and structure. They excel at identifying imbalance and bringing systems back into line. But through the quantum principle that polarity creates experience, a new level of leadership emerges. Their greatest clarity does not come from eliminating tension, it comes from designing within it. Truth is rarely binary. Systems are rarely clean. The arbitrator becomes exponentially more powerful when they learn to work with the tension between opposites, certainty and doubt, justice and compassion, rule and exception. With a motivation direction of away from, they seek to prevent injustice. The polarity here is protection versus openness. Overprotection stifles trust. Overexposure weakens boundaries. When the arbitrator integrates both, guarding integrity while staying open to emergence, they create systems that are firm but adaptable. Their leadership becomes a force of ethical strength with empathetic reach. Their attention focus on self gives them inner consistency. The polarity here is autonomy versus attunement. If they lean too hard into autonomy, they risk becoming inaccessible. If they absorb too much input, their judgment dilutes. Their power sharpens when they balance internal clarity with relational listening. They hold their ground, but stay reachable. With an internal frame of reference, they trust their logic. The polarity is conviction versus flexibility. Too much conviction hardens into dogma. Too much flexibility confuses authority. The wise arbitrator holds anchored values with permeable conclusions. They can revise a decision without losing principle. They evolve fairness without betraying it. Their procedural operational style thrives on consistency. The polarity is structure versus discretion. Overstructure creates robotic systems. Over-discretion breeds inconsistency. The arbitrator matures when they encode just enough space in every process for human judgment. Their systems don't collapse under pressure. They respond with dignity. Their specific viewpoint favors precision. The polarity is detail versus theme. Too much detail fragments truth. Too much generalization blurs justice. The arbitrator builds the blueprint of fairness when they toggle between the pixel and the panorama. They learn when to focus in and when to zoom out to meaning. With a solo work preference, they often operate behind the scenes. The polarity is reflection versus exposure. Staying hidden can dull influence. Overexposure drains their clarity. Their leadership grows when they oscillate between quiet discernment and visible decision. They become the leader who emerges exactly when needed and retreats without ego. Their emotional engagement is dissociated. They remain steady in conflict. The polarity is neutrality versus empathy. Over-neutrality feels cold. Over-empathy risks distortion. The conscious arbitrator speaks truth with tone. They hold a boundary while naming emotion. They offer decisions that clarify and humanize at once. As matchers, they use precedent. The polarity is tradition versus transformation. Relying too much on the past locks progress. Ignoring it creates chaos. When the arbitrator treats precedent as the floor, not the ceiling, they offer stability while opening space for the next ethical iteration. Their through-time orientation offers sequencing strength. The polarity is long-term fairness versus real-time resolution. Some moments call for process, others call for presence. The arbitrator refines justice when they ask, what does this moment require, depth or immediacy? Their tempo becomes tuned to context, not just regulation. And with the primary drive of things, they manifest clarity through policy, documentation, or decision. The polarity is closure versus continuation. Not every judgment is an ending. Some are openings to a new pattern. When the arbitrator builds decisions that resolve the issue but invite evolution, they stop issuing rulings and start structuring regenerative truth. In this frame, the arbitrator becomes not a keeper of static balance, but a designer of moving equilibrium. They no longer aim to remove tension, they weave it into strength. Their decisions don't freeze the system, they allow it to breathe with integrity. They stop choosing between right and kind, logic and care, rule and exception, and begin leading from the sacred tension between all of them. That's when justice becomes not only fair, but alive. Quantum leaders, the arbitrator. Quantum entanglement, the thread between all things. The arbitrator's natural style, discerning, rule-conscious, and outcome-focused, is often guided by the principle of impartiality. Separate yourself from the field so you can judge it clearly. But through the quantum principle of entanglement, that very idea is overturned. The arbitrator is never truly outside the system. Their tone, assumptions, presence, even their silences, are not neutral. They shape the field they observe. Every decision they make carries an emotional signature. Every policy they enforce carries a relational echo. Their leadership is not defined by standing above the system. It is refined by knowing they are woven into it. With a motivation direction of away from, the arbitrator seeks to prevent harm and misjudgment. But systems feel what they focus on. When they continually scan for breach, failure, or falsehood, the field begins to organize around defensiveness. If instead they scan for emerging integrity, sincere attempts, or unconscious growth, they entangle the system in self-correction and dignity. The arbitrator learns that even their questions alter the answers people give, not because they are manipulative, but because they radiate expectation. Their attention focus on self gives them personal consistency, but the belief that they can remain untouched by the system creates blind spots. If they're emotionally armored while others are exposed, they may unconsciously generate mistrust. When they acknowledge, "I'm in the room and I affect the room," their fairness gains relational power. They stop hiding behind neutrality and start offering stable presence. With an internal frame of reference, they stand firmly in personal logic. But their personal logic is already entangled with their upbringing, their biases, their worldview. The arbitrator elevates their clarity when they become conscious of the unseen filters behind their neutrality. They begin asking, is this judgment emerging from clarity or conditioning? In that awareness, their logic becomes cleaner than impartiality. It becomes integrative. Their procedural operational style favors formal guidelines. But every policy becomes a carrier of emotional and cultural tone. A feedback form can feel punitive or empowering. A compliance procedure can reinforce dignity or fear. The arbitrator refines their leadership when they design rules not just for enforcement, but for resonance. They stop delivering fairness as structure and begin transmitting it as energy within structure. Their specific viewpoint brings attention to detail. But in an entangled system, every detail affects trust, engagement, and morale. A word left undefined in a document may create days of hesitation. A phrase in a ruling may seed resentment. The arbitrator matures when they see detail as relational signal. They write not just with accuracy, but with atmospheric intelligence. With a solo work preference, they often reflect in privacy. But entanglement reminds them that even silent judgments have impact. If they return from solitude holding subtle disapproval, others feel it. If they re-enter with stillness, the group relaxes. Their body becomes a field transmitter. The arbitrator's energy, even unspoken, alters how truth is received. Their emotional engagement is dissociated. They choose clarity over emotional involvement, but the system still absorbs their emotional residue. Suppressed frustration becomes tight language. Quiet empathy becomes softer tone. The arbitrator upgrades their leadership when they consciously choose what emotion to transmit, not what emotion to suppress. They become emotionally resonant without being reactive. As matchers, they follow precedent, but past rulings were also born from past energies. What worked under tension may not fit in a space of growth. The arbitrator refines their discernment when they ask, what energy was this rule built in? If it no longer fits, they redesign, not the outcome, but the intention underneath it. They begin crafting decisions that match the moment, not just the manual. Their through-time orientation gives them skill with planning and phasing. But entanglement teaches that others move in sync with their sense of time. If they rush, others tense. If they delay, others wait. Their presence entrains the pace. The arbitrator becomes a temporal harmonizer when they tune their timelines not just for sequence, but for readiness. They make time feel safe, not pressured. And with the primary drive of things, they prioritize outcomes, rulings, structures, policies. But everything they produce is a carrier of relational imprint. Is this outcome uplifting or punitive? Is it clean but distant, or precise and connective? The arbitrator becomes quantum when they treat every decision as an energetic tool, something that teaches people how truth feels, not just what truth is. In this frame, the arbitrator becomes more than an adjudicator of rules. They become a weaver of relational trust inside complex systems. They don't just define what's allowed, they shape how people relate to fairness itself. Their power lies not in distance, but in conscious entanglement, where every word, choice, and gaze becomes part of the ethical ecology they are helping build. In that space, they don't just protect justice, they amplify its field.